Yes, now, bless now, people. Let's follow on. Okay, we've been looking into the Stooges. We've looked at the early histories prior to the release of their debut studio album entitled The Stooges, the self titled album. Now, let's have a little dig at some factoids in regards to this record. If you have any disagreements, if you have any agreements, if you have any stories, let me know. So, The Stooges is the debut studio album by American rock band The Stooges, released on August the 5th, 1969, not long after they had formed by Elektra Records. Elektra are a subsidiary of a large mainstream. It's owned by Warner Music Group, WMG, which is one of the big three record labels, all right? Warner, Universal, and Sony. There you go. Considered a landmark proto-punk release, the album peaked at number 106 on the US Billboard Top 200 Albums chart. The tracks I Wanna Be Your Dog in 1969 were released as singles. 1969 was released on Rolling Stone's list of the 100 greatest guitar songs at number 35. Right. Genre, proto-punk and garage rock, it states, and the studio was the Hit Factory, New York City, produced by John Cale. So background and recording. For their first album, the Stooges had intended to record 7 songs: Asthma Attack, I'm Sick, The Dance of Romance, Goodbye Bozos, No Fun, and I Wanna Be Your Dog in 1969. Asthma Attack was completely different composition than the version of the song utilizing the same song title that appears on the album reissue. According to Iggy Pop, Asthma Attack was a structured piece of Let's rewind. Asthma Attack was a structured piece of repetitive descending chorded that sounded a lot like Syd Barrett's Pink Floyd Interstellar Overdrive. He elaborates further, and it was B major, A major, G major, and E, like a Who thing. And then I would wheeze and say, Asthma Attack. You know what? Even my man Iggy saying repetitious, repetitive. That's what the album really is. The Stooges, each and every song is very repetitive, but we normally hear that in a negative sense. It's definitely the sound of the band at this particular time, and it's almost hypnotic in a sense. Ron Ashton's main guitar riff in the song 1969, which utilizes an A major and G major two chord guitar pattern, was directly lifted from the Byrds' Tribal Gathering, originally occurring between 50 seconds and 1 minute 2, and again at blah blah. Who cares? The drum pattern in 1969 was directly lifted from the famous Bo Diddley percussive beat. The main guitar riff to I Wanna Be Your Dog, which in my opinion is the best track on the record, was inspired by the opening guitar riff to Highway Child by the Jimi Hendrix Experience, and the song arrangement to No Fun was inspired by Johnny Cash's I Walk the Line. Embryonic versions of all 7 songs were initially written from mid-late 68 and early 69. These 7 songs were staples and essentially the basis of the Stooges' 68 and early 69 live set at the time. A typical Stooges song at the period would involve either 2 minutes of composed song followed by several minutes of improvisation or avant-garde freeform workouts. Most definitely, that's why we've got fade outs on all of these songs, because these dudes were just jamming out, it seemed. Having assumed that the 7 songs as normally performed would cover requirements for the album, the Stooges were told by their record label Elektra that they needed more material. Pop later recalled, we auditioned the 7-song version of the album live in the studio and they refused it. Jack Holzman, head of Elektra Records, is quoted having said there aren't enough legitimate songs that contain structured lead vocals, so we lied and said that's okay, we've got lots more proper songs. Upon hearing this, Holtzman then indicated to the band that they had 1 week to record and prepare the album. Within the week, the group was able to complete the task. I wonder what would happen if they didn't. Within the week, the group was able to complete the task the label requested and wrote 4 more songs. We Will Fall, which is crap, I hate it, based upon a musical chant by Dave Alexander. Real Cool Time, that was a good tune. Not Right and Little Doll, based upon Goodbye Bozos. Freak Out, with an additional opening bass guitar riff lifted from Pharaoh Sanders' Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt original. So a lot of fluff in here. And after producer John Cale informed the band that they needed 1 more song to complete the album, Iggy revised Anne, which was the first song he wrote for the Stooges that was initially discarded by the band in '68. 3 of the 4 avant-garde freeform songs were now restructured and edited into pre-existing original songs, with only I'm Sick being discarded completely for the revised list repertoire of original songs recorded for the album. The Dance of Romance was now added into the composition and tacked on as a musical coda after the ballad main song piece. Goodbye Bozos with an additional 2-chord sequence and updated lyrics now became revised as Little Doll, while the Pink Floyd Interstellar Overdrive influenced structured piece known as Asthma Attack was now jettisoned for a more unstructured Freak Out piece, which was newly improvised yet retained the original song title. What's the deal with Freak Out? Freak Out piece? Does somebody want to tell me what that means? I don't know what the hell Freak Out is. All restructured and edited compositions were now played and recorded for the first time in the studio. An initial mix by John Cale, apparently resembling ex-Velvet Underground bandmate Lou Reed's Closet mix of that band's eponymous third album from the same year. Should I check out some Velvet, people? Was rejected by Elektra. The mix, as heard on the final product, was done by Iggy Pop and Elektra president Jack Holtzman. Iggy produced it himself, 4 of Cale's original mixes would later appear on the bonus of the 2005 reissued version with pitch correction applied to them. 5 years later, all 8 Cale mixes were released unaltered on the first disc of a 2010 collector's edition release of the album. You know what I find mad? These bands that just happen to possess all of these demos, all of these recordings, and just possess them decades on down the line to throw onto the, the bonus set and so forth. Maybe there's a little bit of label sort of handling with that, saying, yeah, we'll take them recordings, just leave them with us. You don't have them extra recordings, do you? And then just hold on to them in a big fuck off catalogue. Because, bro, I've recorded with a few bands, right? I've done a few things with a few bands, and as far as demos are concerned, if I come across some, it's fortunate, it's lucky. I can't even come across like full-on albums we've recorded late years on down the line. Reception and legacy. According to music historian Denise Sullivan, what the hell's a music historian? Am I a music historian for what I do? You let me know. The Stooges was disavowed by most critics. Sullivan nonetheless called it a rock and roll classic. I won't call it a classic personally, having listened to it. I won't call it a classic. In a contemporary review, Edmund O. Ward of Rolling Stone called it loud, boring, tasteless, unimaginative and childish, while conceding that he kind of liked it. Robert Kreskow gave it a backhand compliment in his column for the Village Voice, deeming it stupid rock at its best, but did give it a B+ grade overall. In retrospect, Will Hodgkinson called the Stooges charged and brutal garage rock, and Pitchfork critic Joe Tangari said it was one of the essential forerunners to the punk rock movement of the 70s. It and the Stooges' next 2 albums were later deemed proto-punk landmarks, according to Mojo journalist Manish Agarwal. Daryl Easier, writing for BBC Music, called the album rock at its most primordial. The album is the original punk rock rush on record, a long-held, well-kept secret by those in the know. Mike Deeming of AllMusic commented, part of the fun of the Stooges is, then as now, the band managed the difficult feat of sounding ahead of their time and entirely out of their time all at once. Wow. In 2003, the album was placed at 185 on Rolling Stone's list of the 500 greatest albums of all time, maintaining the rating. It seems like every single record we look at is part of a Rolling Stones list. That's what it is. I rant and rave about it every single time. This whole critics session is just like, this critics section of Wikipedia is just like, what number were they on this random list? Don't make a difference, does it? Don't make a fucking difference. Reissues. On August 16, 2005, Elektra and Rhino Records jointly reissued the album as a specially priced double CD, with a remastered version of the album on Disc 1 and alternate takes on Disc 2. On May 7, 2010, Rhino again released the album in their Handmade series as a collector's package, including 2 CDs, a 7-inch record, and a 7x7 size booklet. The first disc features the main songs, the single version of I Wanna Be a Dog, and all original John Cale mixes of the 8 songs. The second disc and both sides of the 7-inch single contained the previously unissued Asthma Attack, a staple of the group's early live shows. On November 8, 2019, Rhino released the 50th anniversary Super Deluxe edition. Cashing in, cashing in, cashing in of the album on digital services and streaming platforms. This 2019 remaster version mirrors the contents of the 2010 double disc set and includes the John Cale's rejected mix of the original album, released at the correct speed for the first time. Wow! In 2010, Vinyl Me, please reissued the album on vinyl using the rejected John Cale mixes. This was the first time the tracks have ever appeared on a vinyl pressing. I mean, they should also do the 55th anniversary Des Rocksteady coughing over the album cover, where it's like the exact same as ever, but I'm just coughing in the background. They should do that and sell that as well. Not going to bother looking at all these different releases. So, personnel, the Stooges. Iggy Pop credited as Iggy Stooge. Vocals and hand claps. They've all been credited for the hand claps here. Additional personnel, John Cale, piano, sleigh bell on I Wanna Be Your Dog. Shout out to John Cale, because that sleigh bell is potentially what makes that song. Viola on We Will Fall in production. Quite talented then. Technical personnel, Joel Brodsky, sleeve photography, Danny Fields, liner notes, original album in 86, blah blah blah. William S. Harvey, sleeve art direction. Jack Holtzman, production supervisor. We don't need to look at the reissue personnel because they're just cashing in. Right, that was the Stooges. We're going to continue onwards. I'm sure I'll get a couple of views on the Stooges things. By now, I've not actually put out the reactions. And then we're going to go on to the second album and then get to Raw Power, because I think Raw Power is quite a good record, right? So I'll see you on the flip side, people.